Hello and welcome to a new video and a new review, and in this particular video we're looking at a turntable. This one is from Roksan. Been a while since I've reviewed any turntable from Roksan, but this one, well, this one is called the Roksan Attessa and it's priced at £995. Now yes, as I say, it's been quite a while since I reviewed a Roksan turntable. A Xerxes 20 Plus, I think, was the last one I reviewed, and I'll actually put a little link below. It's not on this channel, it's on my website. Now this design is a little bit different for a few reasons, but initially for the price. To have a Roksan turntable priced at under £1,000, well, that's rather unusual. You'd normally find Roksan turntables priced, well, what would it be? Anywhere between £2,000-ish to £10,000 plus, I would say. So priced at £995, well, that takes the attention right there and then. What we've got here is a relatively compact turntable that doesn't require a great deal of installation. So before we wade too far into the weeds, I think we need to take a closer look. And welcome to the closer look section for the Roksan Attessa turntable. This is a twin-speed belt drive design, weighing in at 6.3 kilograms and spanning 432 millimeters by 115 by 353 millimeters. What you get in the box is an acrylic dust cover, a basic tracking weight gauge for the cartridge, which is included, I might add, and a phono cable. You get all of that in the box. The Attessa arrives with a rather nice plinth with rounded edges. Running on a stainless steel 303 bearing, the belt revolves around a small sub-platter. Over that is the main platter that is intriguingly built from 10 millimeters of toughened glass, edged in anodized aluminium. On top of that is a fairly basic felt mat made from that rather thicker material that feels less like felt and more harder processed fibers instead. The built-in speed controller is a digitally synthesized AC signal generator, including a factory-calibrated digital motor. You also get a rather jazzy-looking tone arm. This is a uni-pivot with an aluminium 5052 section, and that's fitted to the lower part of the tone arm. On the upper part is ABS, that flatter surface you can see. The tone arm as a whole looks a little bit like a concept design, or alternatively, something that might appear from Vertier. What I didn't like about the design of this tone arm was the lack of a protective cradle clip to secure it. As it is, it's all too easy to knock the tone arm off its cradle and damage the stylus. So if you do buy the Attessa, beware. The tone arm features a rather intriguing enclosed tracking force weight, which rotates in use. This helps to produce a rather stylish substructure. Anti-skate is sorted via a simple wire and O-ring dangly bit that fits onto the tone arm and hangs over an angled piece of wire. Attached at the rear of the tone arm is another tool to easily change the tone arm's azimuth. Hanging off the front end is a moving magnet cartridge called the Dana. This new cartridge didn't receive a great deal of attention from the initial Roksan marketing that I received, but I had a chat with the company and received some more information. Basically, this design uses a bonded elliptical stylus shape and a diamond titanium stylus tip, with a tapered aluminium cantilever. In fact, it's the same aluminium as used in the tone arm. Weighing 6.4 grams, the cartridge demands a tracking force of 2 grams, so nothing too unusual there. Bought separately, this particular cartridge would set you back around £250. Roksan made a point of noting the price of this particular cartridge to me, saying something along the lines of, well, most turntables in this price bracket, you would normally see something like an Audiophile 2M Red priced at £100. So Roksan are going all out with the quality of the cartridge here. I like Roksan's philosophy here because it actually helps to balance the ratio between the plinth, the tone arm and the cartridge. I prefer the value of each of those three components to be, well, pretty equal, so I'm very happy that Roksan has put a rather or relatively more expensive cartridge on the end of their tone arm for the Attessa. The cartridge arrives fitted to the tone arm out of the box, but I would advise you not to dive in and start playing the turntable as is. Now, maybe a shop-bought Attessa is a different kettle of fish. Maybe my example has done the reviewing rounds and has been thoroughly messed about, but my example needed the tracking weight readjusting and the basic position of the cartridge realigning. So I would recommend that you thoroughly check the cartridge before you start play. Installing the turntable includes placing the main platter and mat over the subplatter, checking that cartridge position and tracking weight, plugging in the very basic switch mode power supply, and switching on. There's nothing too gratuitous here. You should be up and running in no time at all. Before switching on, if you take one step back and gaze at the construction, you'll note how different it looks from most other turntables currently on the market, especially in that price point. Roksan certainly has a unique design here. Yes, there are nods to Vertier with that tone arm, and even the older Roksan Oxygen turntable from 2015 in terms of the round-edged plinth. But the overall design looks unique and attractive, compact, neat and tidy. Of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I quite liked it. The interface, the buttons to get this thing up and running, is pretty basic yet simple, with a power button and two others for speed selection, 33 1/3 and 45. When you plug the turntable into the mains, you only need to press the actual speed of choice to start the turntable. The motor is of a philosophical bent because it pauses for a moment, contemplates life and the universe for a moment, and then pushes the platter into action. Around the back is the usual pair of RCA outputs, but inside is a built-in moving magnet supporting phono amplifier. You can turn this unit on in active mode or off in passive mode. But doing so, actually operating this phono amplifier, means poking a pointy thing into this very small recess. Your finger, well, that has no hope at all of actually reaching the switch inside. When you do insert your pointy thing and then moving the tiny, and I mean tiny, switch left or right, I wonder how many times you'll be able to poke at this tiny switch before the switch itself deforms, mangles and crumbles under the pressure. As it stands, this switch is arguably inaccessible, but definitely hard to operate. I did ask Roksan about this design, and it replied, and I quote, "The switch is designed to be deliberately hard to access to prevent a user accidentally switching it from passive to active once setup is complete." Now, I find that statement intriguing because the switch is placed at the rear of the plinth, a place most turntable users tend not to approach during normal day-to-day use. So I'm a little bit confused how anybody would accidentally switch this phono amplifier on or off. More than that, most phono amplifier switches are comparatively tough to move in the first place, even when the switch is protruding, so I'm not sure how an accidental switchover would occur. Even those who treat this area with care, and those who want to actually operate the switch, will find it hard going. So it feels that Roksan has been overly cautious here, to an extreme in fact. This is the only feature on the turntable that I would call a genuinely bad design decision. It needs changing. But let's move from switches to sound now. How does the Roksan Attessa turntable actually sound in operation? Well, let's go to the sound quality tests and we'll find out. And welcome back to the sound quality tests for the Roksan Attessa turntable. And to begin, I grabbed me a slice of Ennio Morricone. This is the soundtrack and title track from the film Mk.II una sera a cena. I think that's how it's pronounced. The music itself provides a wordless female vocal fronting a string section, electric and acoustic guitars, percussion and secondary percussion. There's a few bells in there, and something resembling a glockenspiel. Now, I've said this before, but when I do any sound test for the first time, those first few moments that I'm initially hearing what this thing is capable of, the Attessa in this case, I normally get a first impression, something that immediately stands out about whatever the product is, something about the product's personality, something that hits you before all else. Well, that happened here too. What initially grabbed me about the Roksan Attessa was transparency. Transparency was pretty darned impressive, and that hit me immediately. Now that, I have to assure you, is no mean feat for any hi-fi product, never mind the turntable. So for example, I might get big bass notes from a product, or maybe mid-range detail, or even dynamic reach, but I hardly ever, in fact I can't remember the first time that transparency hit me square between the eyes, and well, that smacks of quality, I have to say. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by transparency? Well, as I was sitting there listening to the music, on the left channel, or my left at any rate, I could hear the vocal. The vocal was doing its thing, which was very nice indeed. Just behind the vocal was a bank of strings. Now with a turntable around this price point, I would normally hear a single bank of strings, but not anymore, not with the Attessa. What I heard with the Attessa was those violins, yes, but with a more focused bit to their work. You could hear effort being placed in their movement, so the strength behind their motion, plus the actual emotion of the reaction to the music itself, was more palpable now. So the usual bank of strings, well, that had a more emotional presentation, but that wasn't the transparency bit. The transparency bit was going behind that bank of violins. Behind that was a second bank of strings. This particular bank of strings was more subtle. The gain from that particular bank was relatively low, so it was not particularly obvious. So to remind you, you had the vocal, a first bank of strings, and just beyond that, a second bank of strings. Quite low frequency, quite low gain. And it's because of that low gain and the low register that they were coming at the ear, that's why they could be easily missed, and they normally are missed from a turntable at this price point. But the Attessa was able to go through the actual vocal, through the first bank of strings, and to hit that second bank and to bring that information back to the ear. That was a transparency. I could see right through what was going on in front of them to get at that second bank of strings. The great thing about the second bank of strings was, Because of the lower register, it was providing a subtle harmony with the first bank of strings. And again, that provided a richer layering in the mix itself. It gave a richer presentation on that left channel. Now, yes, just to emphasize, that information is there, was there, and will always be there. But if you haven't got a quality turntable to actually reach into it, you may very well miss it. Now, on the right channel, there was a whole heap of bass. That suddenly didn't leap forward or dominate here. It actually did retain its position and power. But bass, well, it became larger, more imposing now. So again, what do I mean by bass becoming more imposing? Well, imagine you're sitting at a dining table and you've got a whole heap of guests around the dining table, and you're one of them, and you're sitting there and there are people around you, and there's a guy opposite, and all of a sudden he decides to stand up. Now, while this guy is sitting down, he looks like anybody else in terms of size and build. But when this guy decides to stand up, he looks impressive. He looks big. And that's what's happening with bass on the Attessa. Bass isn't doing anything else. It isn't hitting you with more impact. It doesn't hit you over the head. It just feels and sounds more imposing, more portentous, more threatening. So because of that, bass now took a fuller part in the mix. The guitars, both electric and acoustic, offered impressive precision with a real focus. The piano presented itself with great control, while the cymbals showed impressive mid-range insight, giving carefree splashes that sent reverb tails in all directions. I then turned to Thin Lizzy, because why not? And the track We Will Be Strong from the album Chinatown, and that showed that the Attessa could indeed rock with the best of them. The soundstage was big, impressive, and allowed room for the bold and aggressive electric guitars to frame the music. Drums were solid, powerful without masking the rest of the detail, but also giving the ear a sense of force and conviction. Above all, the music here was melodic. You couldn't help but move the head, feet, arms, and anything else that came to hand. Oh yes, and hands too. That the Attessa could cover the rock basses while also allowing delicate cymbal taps to be clearly heard, while big bass drums were hit and guitars wailed, was a testament to the instrumental separation from the Attessa. Now, during the closer look section, I mentioned the Phono amplifier. So, what of the Phono amplifier? How did that sound? Now, I have to say that for a built-in Phono amplifier, I quite liked it. For a built-in Phono amplifier, that is. It doesn't and it will not best an external model. Saying that, I would happily live with the internal model if I had no other choice. It's basically neutral in presentation, offers decent focus around the bass, and enough mid-range information to allow you to relax and enjoy your music. To make the most of this turntable, and let's face it, you're going to be spending quite a lot of money, your hard-earned money, on this turntable, so why wouldn't you want to maximize its performance in the first place? On that basis, I would recommend that the external Phono amplifier be your first upgrade. Even so, if cash is tight, the internal model is certainly usable and will provide a good start on your Attessa's sonic journey. So, how do I conclude the review of the Roksan Attessa turntable? Offering a relatively compact, attractively designed chassis, it's even a little futuristic in aesthetic terms, the Roksan Attessa is easy to set up, it's easy to use, and it offers a superb suite of sonic sweetmeats. Bottom line, this is a quality product. This is the sort of turntable that when you're listening to music will have you nodding your head and bunching your eyebrows in approval. That kind of thing. In sonic terms at least, you can buy the Roksan Attessa Turntable with confidence. And that's me done, folks. Thank you very much for sticking with me to the end of the video. And thank you too for all of your support. And if I could ask you just to go one step further and click on the subscribe and like buttons below, please. Check out the description. That will have a whole host of chapter headings if you want to bounce around this video in terms of navigation. Don't forget to check my social media links while you're down there. Also, you're welcome to join my Facebook group. There's a link for that there too. Also, my website has a host of information editorial you will not see on this channel. That Xerxes review I mentioned earlier on is just one example of that. If you can support me to keep this YouTube channel actually going in the first place, please check out my Patreon page. All support is very welcome and absolutely essential, as I say, to keep me going. So if you can help me out, that'd be very, very welcome indeed. There's also some exclusive material on there too, so please also have a look at that. I'll be back next week with another video. What am I going to do next week? I ain't sure. Review? Something else? I don't know. Even I don't know. That's how exciting it is. And I'd like to have your company anyway. We always have a nice time, don't we? Don't we have a nice time? I think we have a nice time. Until that time, folks. Until next week, bye-bye for now.